This is Pastor Tim coming to you from Bend and Lomita United Methodist Churches, where we are doing God's work in our small place in the world, trying to be part of the larger Christian community. One of the ways we do that is to share some discussion about the Scriptures, because I think the Scriptures are the foundation of all that we do, all the way we worship, the way we do ministry, the way we interact with people. And so to get some footholds into the Scriptures so you can begin to understand what they're talking about, because it is a very complicated book. So we have had some times of discussion in the Scriptures over these last few years, and hope that this is helpful. Right now we're doing the Scriptures for Lent. During the Lent season, as we prepare for Easter, there's a series of Scriptures that are designed to help us think about who we are and where we stand with God and what God would want in this world, would want from us in ministry and mission. So we are talking about Nicodemus this time. Jesus was near where the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin met, and Nicodemus was one of the leaders of that group. But he didn't want anybody to see that he was talking to Jesus. So he came in the middle of the night when nobody usually gets out and goes around, so he would be unseen. I remember there weren't any street lights and there weren't any doorbell cameras to record it, so he could sneak around. And he went to see Jesus. And the Pharisees were pretty much against Jesus, the leaders of the Jews, because he wasn't controlled. He didn't have their authority. He didn't ask permission. He just began ministering, and they didn't have any input into what he said and did. So in general, the folks that are around Nicodemus would criticize him for going to talk to Jesus. But he sees something in Jesus that he thinks is important. So he sneaks in at night and goes and asks Jesus about what he's doing. And Jesus, he asks questions that turns out to be very different. Jesus gives very different answers. He says, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God. No one can do these signs that you do apart from the presence of God. It's quite a compliment from somebody who's part of a group that doesn't really want Jesus around. To say that we see God in you, we see something important, even though it's not according to the structure, it's not using the ways that we have of authorizing people. We see something in you. And that's quite a compliment from a Pharisee, from one of the ones who's in opposition to Jesus. But then Jesus answers him, and he didn't, which is really odd because he didn't ask a question in the first place. But he answers him. He says, very truly I tell you, no one can enter the kingdom of God without being born from above. Now, to get the understanding of what Nicodemus heard, you have to remember that born from above and born again are the same sentence. It's the same words. So you can interpret it either way. And so the first thing that Nicodemus does is interpret it as going inside his mother's womb and being born a second time. And he knows he can't do that. Everybody would know that that was impossible. That was just a physical, didn't make any sense to him. But you have to remember that Jesus oftentimes in the Gospel of John speaks at a very different level than what the person he's talking to. They often ask questions or make statements that make sense or ask for common sense kind of answers, but Jesus answers on another level. He's not talking the same language. He's not talking the same frame of reference. And so when he says you're a good teacher, you're of God, He says, well, you must be born again. You must be born from above. And Nicodemus probably said, what? Wonder what in the world he's talking about. And Jesus goes on to explain, continue that discussion. What Jesus means is not an actual physical birth, but a spiritual birth. It's such a radical reorientation towards life. It's a change from our self-centered, self-protective self to being, having the values and the priorities, the objectives of God. It's so radical, it seems like you're being born again. The frame of references that society uses are all gone. So you must be born from above. You must be entirely reoriented. So this is the story that Nicodemus gets from Jesus, is that he must completely overhaul his perspective and take on the perspective from God, which is to be born of the Spirit rather than the physical nature. Nicodemus never does really understand that, at least in this conversation. But he does. He is one of the ones who come and ask for the body of Jesus after his crucifixion. And so, because we know his name, we also learn that when the church knows the name, it's because that person was part of the church. So we can assume that Nicodemus finally did get it, that he finally did understand what Jesus was saying. I think that one of the natural things for us is we are self-centered or by nature. We try to protect ourselves, we try to preserve our own life. We look out for our own interests. Some of us have enlightened self-interest, saying that the interest of the other person is part of my interest. But that orientation doesn't work in the Christian faith. You have to let go of that. Let go to focus on the self and focus instead on God. And God gives us a broader perspective of all humanity. We're all God's children. And so what good does God want to do? What are God's preferences? Who are the people that God cares about? What is God's passion? And so during Lent, maybe we could begin to think about not let go of our own perspective and say, what does God want from me? And we can turn our objective, our understanding, to be totally oriented towards God, towards heaven. And that would give us a better perspective on earth. Because what God has in heaven is what he wants on earth, and is what is best for us. So I hope that is helpful for Nicodemus. The idea of being born again does not mean you have a particular religious experience. It does not mean you have the right beliefs. It does not mean that you have read the Bible in a certain way. It means that you reorient yourself towards God rather than yourself. So maybe we could practice that during Lent. I'll see you next time.